on and look at some other places around the world. I've asked the panel to each pick a country that they're going to be watching this year. Perhaps it's because it's a hotspot or it has growing importance or some unique situation. And Luke, let's start with yours. You picked Brazil.
Yes, I'm particularly interested in the Amazon in Brazil, and it is a territory that encompasses 9 Brazilian states. It's larger than the size of Portugal. It's vital to the global environment, and it's also protected land for indigenous people. But unfortunately, in recent years, we've seen major international gangs, particularly the PCC, invade the Amazon with extremely negative consequences for the people there.
Yeah, what are the implications there?
Well, so if you've spent any time in the jungle, like the Amazon, which I was in the jungle not too long ago, not the Amazon, waterways are really important. And so these gang members have escaped the law by controlling and militarizing the waterways, and it's been horribly destructive for the indigenous people because they've been threatened, murdered, raped, malaria's been spread, there's been famine, and what this gang, and they have $1 billion in drug revenue. They have 42,000 soldiers that have infiltrated this territory, and now they're gold mining illegally and deforesting the Amazon to make money, which has global consequences as well as immediate consequences for the indigenous people who live there because the mercury poisons the water and ruins the land.
We will watch Brazil. Chad, what's your country to watch?
India. It's the world's largest country, and more than half of its population is under the age of 25. I acknowledge that Modi is problematic, but at the same time, India's grown under his leadership. Its highway system is 50% larger than it was 10 years ago. Its train speeds have increased 50% in the last 2 years. It has a digital currency payment system now, which has helped curtail the informal and corrupt cash-only systems. It has challenges as well, but I focus on the potential, including its potential as an ally, both in national security and economic ties to the U.S. And that's why I'm traveling there in March and excited to see what I can learn.
Yeah, I mean, the U.S., we talked about a lot of challenges that we have. Chad, what are some challenges that India has?
The Modi part is where I'd start. You know, he's kind of a dangerous autocrat, too protectionist, and, you know, female labor participation rate is too low. A lot of the growth will have to come from services, not manufacturing. But really, if they have like an economic shift toward liberalism and deeper political commitment to the West, it can really kind of rise in power and become a hegemonic player.
And there's a massive unemployment rate among the youth, which is about 35%. And you know, one thing that we forget is that the large part of the Indian labor force is informal. So only 3% is formal, means they're protected by, you know, modern job incentives like, you know, paid holiday and pensions and, you know, medical care. 97% of the labor force does not have any of that. Right? There's no labor protection. So it's a largely informal economy in the service sector. So that's the youth unemployment. And that's why you see all these scam companies like scamming Americans. They are all in India, right? Because the youth doesn't have money. They don't have jobs. So that's a big challenge for India. You are very well said that.
While you're on, let's talk about India's neighbor, Bangladesh.
Yeah, so Bangladesh is a very interesting country, right? Like it was formed as East and West. So it was called East Pakistan before 1971. It was a strange arrangement that Pakistan on the west and East Pakistan on the east with India in the middle would be the same country. And they are Bengalis, they're not Urdu speakers. So inevitably there was a independence revolt in movement in 1971. Bangladesh gained independence. Lot of things happened after that. You know, there were two political parties that kind of alternated with each other, kind of became corrupt. And then recently this year, what happened was the Awami League, you know, the prime minister was overthrown. She fled to India. And the main reason for this is corruption, nepotism, but also it was seen to be a secular party, right? A large part of Bangladeshi youth are secular progressive. They don't want religious aspects to be baked into the Bangladeshi constitution, and they want it to be secular and socialist. So there is this radical Muslim right-wing movement that wants to hijack these two parties. At present, it is in a caretaker government, and we will see what happens in the next election. Bangladesh has shown tremendous growth. It was called the Pajama Republic for a reason, because it created the largest, I think, 40% of the world clothing. So it will be interesting to see what happens to Bangladesh. Very promising country. But
a promising country. We'll keep watch. And Ben, What country are you watching?
I'm going to be watching Russia. It has been incremental, but it's been continued to escalate the weapons that are being utilized on the battlefield, including an intercontinental ballistic weapon that was used just last month that's typically or would be used to deliver nuclear warheads. They had everything but that on those missiles that they shot into Ukraine. In addition to that, when they invaded Ukraine, over 500 Russian spies were evicted from the countries that they were in. So what they've turned to is paying mercenaries. For example, they paid a Ukraine person to set up cameras on the railroad tracks so they could watch and monitor what weapons are coming in from the West.
So the weapons is a concern, and also are you a little fearful about nuclear?
Yes, absolutely. And I would say, without scaring everybody, I'm talking about tactical nuclear weapons, which are still terrible, but they are smaller in size than what we think of when we talk about nuclears. But that could be a starting point and a tipping point, which is why I think Putin has held off on using that. But as things don't go his way, if that happens, not only is he asking North Korea to be involved and having troops from North Korea fight with his troops, this is showing more unpredictable components to it, which makes me a little nervous.